Fear. I'm about to attempt something that I've been afraid to do. I'm going to do something that I have planned to do since the advent of the video camera, I guess. Since I was old enough to think of it. This will be a video biography of my life, to a certain extent, I suppose. I will actually be speaking instead of writing it down. I'm just going to say what I remember. As with all things, this is my side of a story. My story as according to me. It's been proven that we remember things differently, but I think the general facts are the same in all circumstances. I will be as honest as I can without naming names or spreading other people's secrets, so to speak. The secrets I share are my own. If you happen to be a part of those secrets, I will apologize. I did not name your name, but this is my life, and I have a right to speak about my life, no matter who you are. I was born Michael Anthony Reed II in 1983 to, oh, well, I suppose I shouldn't really tell you my parents' names. What do I really know about my parents at that time? My father was, for lack of a better word, an addict, from all accounts of what I've been told. My mother, she's my mother. I have nothing bad to say about her. I guess we'll have to get into that. My earliest childhood memory is actually of a purple monster yelling at me in my bed. It was some kind of nightmare that I had at the time. I've been told that I used to call my stepfather, who married my mother after my bio dad's and her divorce, on my birthday, when I was 3 years old. I used to call him Mean Daddy when he tried to put me to bed. Childhood is hard to remember. It's just a part of it. My next earliest memory would have to be Hobbs, New Mexico, where we moved when I was 4-ish, I think. Somewhere around there, 4. It was before I started kindergarten, I know that. Hobbs, New Mexico, the house on Main Street, is mostly what I remember from Hobbs, New Mexico. It was haunted. Not the first time we lived there, but the second. I vaguely remember going to kindergarten. I started at, I believe it was Jefferson Elementary. Due to a severe, not so much severe, speech impediment. I had a speech impediment. I was dubbed one of the special students. And instead of going to kindergarten at Jefferson, I would get on a bus every morning and be shipped to Washington, which was for special students. I found the work there easy. Too easy. As you can see, a speech impediment at that time obviously meant that you had special needs. For an unpolitically correct term, they thought I was retarded, which later proved not to be the case. I simply had a speech impediment. I learned a little bit how to overcome my speech impediment. My best friend in first grade was named Matt. I was always over at his house, and he had this spooky house behind his that we thought was haunted, and we got in trouble for going over there, and I never saw Matt again until fourth grade when I went back to Jefferson. But we'd really kind of lost touch with one another. We weren't really friends anymore. In second grade, I got my first kiss from a girl named, well, here I am dropping names. Well, I don't really remember their last names. I was a kid. A girl named Cindy, I think her name was. One of my friends told me to go and tell her that we were not going out anymore, and she told me fine, that I was going to be her new boyfriend. And at some point we both snuck into the classroom to get a ball or something, and she gave me my first kiss. Trying to remember third grade. At the first school that I went to in third grade, because we did move around a lot around Hobbs, and it did have 11 elementaries. I think it was absolute horror. My grades were horrible until I went back to Jefferson in third grade. And my teacher there really turned me around, and I guess once the bullying stopped, my grades got better, lo and behold. I suppose that's how things happen. I suppose that started some resentment in me. Me feeling like a victim. I learned to victimize myself. It happens. Fourth grade. In fourth grade, we moved back to Coleman, Texas. At the end of fourth grade, I started my fifth grade year in Coleman, Texas. The reasons behind us moving, I really didn't understand them at the time. Now that I'm older, I kind of know what happened, but I don't really think that it's any of your business. No offense. That's between my parents and other people. People whom I absolutely adore. My little brother and my big sisters. One of them is a stepsister. My little brother is a half-brother. That does not really affect our relationship whatsoever. Yeah. The one thing I missed most when I moved from fourth grade, at the end of fourth grade, was my best friend Terry. Used to go play Punch-Out over at his house on the Nintendo. Went to the arcade with him, played Golden Axe. We had some good times, and he was a good friend, from all that I can remember. Fifth grade. New kid, new school. Bit strange. In fifth grade, because I was from a much larger city, nobody knew who I was. I decided that this was the chance that I had to be something I wasn't. I tried to come across as this tough inner city boy, which I have never been tough. I was never inner city, to say the least. I mean, supposing I had stayed growing up in Hobbs, maybe my life would be different, and I would be that inner city boy. But I was not. This isolated me, as I was accustomed to, from all the people that I really went to school with. So fifth grade wasn't really a much different in terms of schooling. I was the odd kid out, or at least that's how I felt. Looking back, nope, I was the odd kid out. First friend I made when I came to Coleman was Bill. I suppose I can use first names to some extent. He was a pretty normal, geeky guy, so we got along well. And then my next friend was David, whom I met through Bill. Me and David became really good friends. Through my junior high years, we were pretty much inseparable. It wasn't until we went to high school that we lost touch, really. How does this go? 5th grade, yeah, that pretty much covers it. Then 6th grade, I entered junior high, as is the fashion here in Texas. I really don't remember much about 6th grade. I remember the summer right before 6th grade. What I remember, or was it summer or fall? I don't really remember. So let's leave it that. I was 12 and I got a girlfriend who was 11, I think. Her name was Michelle, and she was, I guess, my first introduction. Well, not really my first introduction. I liked bossy girls, and she was bossy. She came across as hard and, I guess, the tough girls. Bossy girls. I don't think they like that term. Leaders is what they use now. Back then we called them bossy. And yes, I liked that shit. Me and her broke up because she moved. I guess that's how things go when you're a kid. First girl to give me a French kiss. Yes, I think we may have, I may have been a little open to such things at a very early age. What else is there to do in small town Texas, I guess? Next significant life event, trying to remember. It's very blurry back then. And I did not write any of that shit down. It's before I started keeping a journal. I think 7th grade. Well, that is one thing to note. At the end of 6th grade, I got another girlfriend 2 or 3 days before school ended, and spent half the summer with her before she likewise moved away. Her first name was Susan. And yes, I remember these people's last names, but anyways. In 7th grade, or right before the start of 7th grade, she moved away, and then shortly after that, I moved away. I moved to Mullen, Texas. I went from population 5,000 to population 200, including cattle, I'm sure. Very small school. Once more, I had maybe 2 friends. Billy and Cody. The one was an electricianist type kid. He liked to take electricity and play with it, and he knew how. The other one was kind of an inventive kid. They were okay, but most of the time I read. I suppose that's why I don't have a lot of memories of other people. Starting in 6th grade, I turned my nose to books. J.R.R. Tolkien, I've read that. Moby Dick, I made it halfway through. I really got strung up in the Norse gods. The actual myths, not the comic book versions that everyone's familiar with thanks to movies and such. There was one girl in Mullen. Her name was April. I finally got the courage to mention it. She wasn't having it. life lesson learned. If I hadn't approached, I never would have known. We moved out of Mullen. I was there shortly after football season ended. I played football for the Mullen Bulldogs. Number 7, go me. Other things of significance, my half-brother showed up, along with my grandmother, who had been estranged from me because of my biological father's side of the family, and I met them for the first time, though I didn't really have anything to do with them. I mean, I was polite, I think, maybe not. 7th grade, I came back to Coleman. That's where we moved into my all-time favorite house ever. And I lived, well, no, first I moved into a bad trailer house, and then we moved into that other house, which was a very nice white house. Back in Coleman School. Met back up with my friend David. The people that I hung out with probably had the most friends that I'd ever had. I was actually part of a circle of friends at this point. You know what? I'm going to give first names. The only people that are going to know anything about this are the people in Coleman. And this isn't... I guess it's kind of for you guys too. David, Connie, Johnny, Josh, Ginger, Chris, and Larry. These were my friends. It was usually me, David, Larry, and Chris hanging out somewhere. At school, we spoke to the girls. David dated Ginger, I dated Ginger. David dated Connie, I dated Connie. Throughout, let's see how this goes. We'll first go with Ginger. David broke up with her. I was attracted to her. She reminded me of Icebox from the movie Little Giants. I don't know if anyone remembers that movie. So, that was my attraction initially. We dated as kids do. Granted, we were all coming into the hormonal phase of our lives. I was a little more experienced in the whole touchy-feely, tonguey stuff than she was. She was a good girl. She really was. I not so much. I was not a good kid, I suppose. During the same period of time, a kid from Tulsa showed up. Sorry. He had the same name as me. David introduced us. We started hanging out and we got in trouble. He didn't stay long. He left after no more than 3 months, but we became quick friends. But he became quick friends with everyone. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Moving on to lighter subject matter. Anyways, me and Ginger dated. Michelle moved back at some point, and for some God knows why reason, because I was a hormonal kid and thought I could probably get further with her. I don't freaking know. I broke up with Ginger. Tried to get with Michelle. That lasted a day. David and Ginger hooked back up. Straight up junior high bullshit, and I dated Connie for a very brief time. Uh, but I think I was a little intense for her, because she was very, very good child, I suppose. Very moral child, and I was not so much. 7th grade. I do believe it was 7th grade, near the end of it, that I decided that Ginger's father had a right to know that I was dating his daughter. So I got on the bus to their house, which was 15 miles away, and just kind of invited myself and showed up so I could meet him. And we spoke. That may have been at the end of 8th grade, I don't know. I can't really remember. Or the beginning. It was somewhere in there. It's hard to remember such things. It was a long time ago. I'm 32 years old now. I was 13 or 14. I do recall that over the summer of my 7th grade year, I smoked pot for the first time, thanks to my sister's boyfriend, Jacob. He let me smoke for the first time. I don't really recall it having much effect except for the second time. Moral of the story, don't smoke pot when you're young. It doesn't really do anything good for you. Wait until you're older, like adult. Still, books and video games were a large part of my life. It was also over that summer that I met my friend Cody, who introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons. That's right, I am a D&D nerd. Congratulations. That group later grew to become many more people, including my friend Andrew, my friend Terrence, my friend Todd, and Thomas, along with some later people that just happened to show up. That was probably some of my favorite times over that summer. They didn't really show up until I was in high school, though. No, that summer it was Cody and Rachel and, was it, I want to think it was maybe Josh or Bryant, or so many people have come through my life back in those days. We had a good times playing Dungeons and Dragons, 2nd edition. We did. We had a lot of good times. I think I may have gotten, yeah. Anyways, it was actually around this time that me and David stopped hanging out as much. He had a tragic event happen in his life. You can ask him about that. We were all out at the lake one day, and he got some really bad news. It was shortly at the beginning of my 8th grade year when my great-grandmother passed away. This struck me rather hard, mind you. At the time, I was very, very, very Christian, as anyone that was raised to be would be. I mean, I'd been dealing with the church off and on since I was who knows how old. When she passed away, I lost my faith, so to speak, in pretty much the entire teachings of the Bible, and sought a different path. I went looking for something that would fill the void I felt, I guess. It's actually fairly common for 13-year-olds to go through that when they experience tragedy. So, trying to open up. No good sitting around closed up. Okay. That's part of my life in 25 minutes. This is about the time that I started reading things such as Wicca, the mythologies, looking at the ancient gods, wondering, well, what was so wrong with them? They seem to fill in ancient people's voids, and learning about mysticism, reading about ESP, out-of-body experiences, things of this nature. It wasn't... I'm lying. I was a boy, therefore it was not as important as girls. I started to lie to you. Try not to do that. I guess mine and Ginger's relationship was going well at the time. We saw each other briefly over the summer. We kept up at school when 8th grade started. I do believe it was also around this time that the whole thing with Michelle happened. I'm not real sure. I remember feeling a lot of guilt, a lot of heartache, a lot of not being... I felt like I was a bad person. And a lot of people might think that I was a bad person, but I also now know that I was a child. I didn't know really how to deal with the emotions that I was dealing with. Most kids don't. It's part of hormones. Or at least I didn't know how to. I can't say most kids. I don't know most kids. I'm sure there's less and more mature people out there. Anyways, 9th grade, high school. Skipping over junior high, going straight into high school. I entered 9th grade with the feeling that I was somewhat more evolved, more aware, more... I felt like I was better than everybody. I really did. I thought that I was better than them, and that the world was mine for the taking. That was an unrealistic optimism, to say the least. I had also gone more heavily into smoking pot. I had become the nerdy child that is more concerned with things like pot, Dungeons and Dragons, creativity, art. I was much more in tune with the creativity part of myself. Not really what you would call the manly kind of guy either. It was about that time that I decided that I could do whatever I wanted and there would be no consequences. And it is also the time that Michael, who had moved away, came back. I got sent to CAPS, which is an alternative program. The reason I got sent to CAPS is because, one, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to in school, but the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back is I had a couple of cigarettes in my book bag. They fell out in the middle of class, and I took them to the office where I was in trouble, and pretty much told the principal that he needed to give me my cigarettes back, and he refused. And I told him he was a thief, and anyways. I said a lot of mean things to the principal, and the principal sent me to an alternative education program. Life at Caps. Life at Caps. I met Melissa at Caps. I was technically dating Ginger, but me and Melissa kind of hit it off, and I started seeing them both. I was dating them both because I was a douche. So as I dated both of them, I suppose, I don't know if it was guilt. I'm fairly certain that it was. Me and Ginger, having lived miles apart, to us it was freaking 100 miles, might as well have been. We grew further apart, and Melissa lived like 3 blocks. I could walk to her house. 14-year-olds being how they are, one day we did what 14-year-olds will be done when left unsupervised. And I think I had already broken up with Ginger at that point. I cannot actually remember. It was, I think, what happened. I'm not real sure. School life, I did my work and stayed out of most things, or tried to. That was school life. Went home, played D&D, read my books, drew my pictures, listened to my dark, depressing music, and stayed in my room. That summer, me and Melissa were still going out, I believe. May have been towards the end of summer. Me and Michael went out and stayed out well past curfew. I will say at 14, I'd already tried pot, so me and Michael also got into his mother's whiskey and filled it up with water, and I'm fairly certain we were both way too drunk to be riding our bikes, but we did it, and she caught us, and we got in trouble. They considered me a bad influence. We were a bad influence on each other. Later that year, he was grounded because me and him had went out and done some stupid shit again. He went out. Am I getting ahead of myself? I think that I am. I think I was 15. This is how things fade in your mind. Anyways, he went out with some friends of ours. I was still grounded, and he went out to the lake, and he was swimming, and who knows how things went down. I wasn't there, but she drowned, and what's to be said about it? Yes, I still miss him, but I suppose that's one of the tragedies that forged my life, right? He was a good kid. taken too soon. Yes, we did some bad things, but he was a good kid. After that, I kind of allowed my grief process to turn into something that probably shouldn't have. Turned real heavy to pot and alcohol. Started doing the party thing more than anything, and of course these parties sometimes involve Dungeons and Dragons. It's my friend Drew introduced me to Steven. We had some really weird times, to say the least, over there. I mean, we were all underage, drinking. It was the first time Guy went through a past life experience. He was kind of into some mysticism back then. We went through this weird little countdown, and I had a past life experience of some kind. I also met his sister, Patricia, there. Everyone was really mean to her. They were not nice to her, but I tried to be nice. I tried to be nice to her, considering her age. I probably, well, we shouldn't have done anything, but we did. So it happens. First experience with an older woman. I was dating Melissa at the time. I felt super guilty. Guilt was a large part of my life back then, actually. I felt guilty most of the time back then for the things I was doing, but I kept doing them because they felt good. And that is how I dealt with growing up, I guess. That's how I dealt with life then. Things advanced. Broke up with Melissa when I kind of got sent away because, I mean, I was, yeah. And then enter, shit, what happened after that? And these are the effects of underage drinking and marijuana smoking, so don't do it, children. Moving right along, entering the summer of that year, I apparently had not learned my lesson whatsoever on dating older women. I met a good friend of mine, Thomas, and he was an excellent dungeon master, great Risk player. I also met his sister. And, well, what can I say? I liked older women. That too, eventually, you know what? Right now, I apologize to both of the older women because y'all did not need that shit. You really didn't need the shit that you got into for my bullshit. I will step up and say, it was me. I initiated, I came onto them, and I took advantage of the situation. First one being one had very low self-esteem, and who could blame her for all the shit everyone was putting her through. As for the second one, she was going through some messy shit at the time herself, and she needed someone to be there for her. And I was a horny teenager. So, it kind of worked out for both of us. Moral of the story, As a teenager, I actively took advantage of older women's weaknesses so I could sleep with them. I was a douche. I'm an asshole. Congratulations. Glad you know that about me. As school started up again that year, me and, I'm not saying her name because it's too unique. We're still dating. She decided that she needed some other teenager. And we broke up, and I did what teenagers do. I got pissed off. I got furious. And there's no amount of apology that can make up for the things I did, because that led to her being ran out of town. I had not learned from my mistakes, and as Patricia said, forbidden fruit does taste the sweetest. So, that is how things happened. Then, shortly after that, now single, back to, I do believe it was Melissa. No. Oh, yes, for a brief time. Shortly after that, I tried to date another girl with a very unique name, whom I will not mention her name, but her sister didn't like that, so she broke up with me because, as I later found out, her sister wanted her to go out with somebody else. But that's not really any of my business. We didn't last long, and I think everything combined, I don't really know what set me off, other than somebody popped off in class, and I decided that this, of all times, in the class taught by the former Marine, I believe he was, or Navy, or I know it was in the Armed Forces, that was the appropriate class to start punching someone. And I did. I punched him 3 times, and from what of all accounts, elbowed the teacher. This apparently had just recently been changed to an aggravated assault charge. And they pressed charges on me. I'd never had a violent outburst that I remember. Oh, well, no. There was another beef with a guy who, I told him he could have one hit. He took it, and he went for another, and yeah. That was a different story. Good times, good times. T, by far, he deserved. He should have gotten to hit me another time, because when you punch someone and they laugh at you, for the record, it did hurt. I was taking advice from my sister's then boyfriend, that when they punch you, laugh at them. And I did, and it had the desired effect. He was pissed. So, I guess I had some violence. But I didn't hit him back. I just kind of danced around with him a little bit, holding him like that so he couldn't punch me. Anyways, you hit a kid 3 times in the face, and you will go, did you pee? And I did, for 3 horrible, miserable days. Yeah, I'm so fucking hard. 3 days of solitary confinement, except for half a day the last day. Yeah, that actually, 3 days of solitary confinement, I do believe that's illegal now. It did not make for a saner version of myself at the time. When I met my probation officer, or the man who became my probation officer, I pretty much tried anything to get the hell out of there. I came at him with a calm voice, that I was calm and normal. When he still told me no, I came at him with the scream and rage. When that didn't work and he sent me back to my cell, The next time he came in, I went to the default of pity and cried. I cried like a little bitch. And I'm not ashamed of that because 2 hours later, my parents came and they picked me up, and I was put on probation instead of 6 months of detention center. Where my life, had I been through the detention center, probably would have been, well, I probably would have become a criminal of some kind, I'm sure. Because it doesn't work that way, you know? However, on probation, I quit smoking pot. But part of my probation was mandatory mental health check thing. My probation officer diagnosed me immediately with bipolar depression. He was not a medical doctor that I am aware of. I think he had a minor in psychology. He may have had a major. MHMR immediately decided that, I am going to say this fucker's name because I don't care, Dr. Sam Beaton, decided that since he talked to me for 5 minutes, decided that I was depressive, and prescribed me Zoloft. All of you people that found out that Zoloft causes suicidal tendencies in teenagers, you can thank me for that because I was their fucking guinea pig. And yes, I do hold that against them. And I do not have a very high opinion of anyone that prescribes drugs for psychological problems. Moving along. Oh, they also gave me Ambien so I could sleep. So, introduced to drugs, pills for the first time. Lovely. I don't want to make excuses, but I do think it did cause some of my later problems in life. Trying to get you to, I guess, out of high school. Is that where I'm going? No, this seems like a good first chapter. I'll get it up to this. There was a girl whom I met, whom I am not going to name because she will kill me. That's right, she'll kill me. And, despite the fact that she had a boyfriend at the time, me and her kind of got close to one another. Very close. And, she later became one of my best friends in the whole entire world. Yeah, that's not giving it away at all, is it? She decided that she didn't want to be with me anymore, and I went in all rage thing and punched a metal pole, and then she bandaged me up and said we still aren't going out because I'm a psycho. It was at that point that I decided that Zoloft wasn't for me. And I told my probationary officer that, and he agreed with me. That made me better. That really did. I guess we'll get up to this. 1998. It was actually, no, I think it was January of 99. Let's put it that way. Her name is also unique. So, I'm going to use a nickname that I gave to her, much to her disapproval, and I will call her Bunny. Yes, if you've read any of my writings, yes, I did base that one off of her. No, she's nowhere near as psycho as the one in the book. So we'll just call her Bunny. I met Bunny, and I am going to consider that, I guess, my first taste of what love could have been. But more on that later. I'll pick it up back with that.